Ethan was halfway through his morning coffee when a thick envelope slid under his apartment door. He picked it up, expecting bills, only to freeze when he saw Madison's signature on the corner. Inside was the divorce petition, crisp and cold, accompanied by a handwritten note that read, "I'm taking everything." No explanation, no hesitation, just a threat wrapped in legal paper. She accused him of financial control and demanded 75% of their shared assets, as if the last 5 years meant nothing. Ethan felt the weight of it, but he didn't panic. Instead, he sat down, opened every page, and reviewed the list she'd submitted. She had counted every piece of furniture, every bank account, every item of value except the one thing she always dismissed as meaningless. His crypto portfolio, over $347,000, completely absent from her claims. That was the moment he realized the real war had just begun. Ethan didn't waste a single hour after reading through the petition. The first thing he did was power on his workstation, pull up his crypto dashboard, and initiate a full transfer of every coin he owned into a cold wallet he kept locked in a fireproof safe. He had always been meticulous about security, but today he was a different kind of careful. This time it wasn't about hackers or market volatility. It was about protecting himself from the person who had just promised to take everything. Once the transfers were confirmed, he grabbed his laptop and began researching forensic accountants. He knew that if Madison was willing to demand 75% of the marital assets, she either had something to hide or assumed he was too naive to investigate her finances. Either way, he wasn't stepping into this blind. That's when he found Alicia Ramirez, a sharp, intimidating financial forensics expert known for exposing hidden income streams and fraudulent filings. Her reviews were brutal, half from clients praising her precision, half from people she had investigated cursing her for ruining their lives. Ethan figured she was exactly the kind of person he needed. He scheduled a consultation, and within a day he was sitting across from her in her office, sliding a folder of bank statements, tax returns, and transaction logs across the table. Alicia read through them quickly, her eyes moving like a scanner. After a few minutes, she leaned back and said, "If she's hiding something, I'll find it. And if she's lying to the court, I'll make sure your attorney has everything needed to bury those lies." It wasn't comforting, exactly, but it was the first moment Ethan felt the odds shift slightly in his favor. Meanwhile, Madison had already begun her own campaign. She posted a long, melodramatic thread on social media, portraying herself as a financially oppressed wife taking back control of her life. Within hours, she had a swarm of strangers championing her courage, repeating her claims without knowing anything about Ethan or their marriage. The attention emboldened her, and her lawyer followed up by sending Ethan a list of demands. Full disclosure of every digital asset, password-protected account, and online financial tool he had ever used. It was aggressive, almost theatrical, but Ethan kept his composure. He forwarded everything to Alicia and let her handle the response. While the online world cheered Madison on, Ethan prepared for something more serious. He organized every receipt, contract, and screenshot he had stored over the years, anything that could prove transparency on his end. He recorded a video inventory of his home, documenting every item in case Madison tried to claim missing property later. He changed the locks, updated all two-factor authentications, and set up alerts on every account. By the end of the week, his digital and physical life were fortified to the point that even he was surprised by his own level of caution. And all this time, Ethan kept replaying one thought in his head. If Madison truly believed she could walk in, take his assets, and walk out clean, then she had forgotten who she was married to. He wasn't confrontational, but he wasn't careless either. And now that she had chosen war, he was preparing for every angle she might attack from. He didn't know exactly what Alicia would uncover, but he had a feeling, deep and undeniable, that Madison had secrets she never expected anyone to dig up. And soon, those secrets would be the very thing that shattered her plan. Alicia spent the first week combing through every document Ethan had given her, but she didn't stop there. She filed requests for supplementary statements, traced every transaction Madison had made over the past 5 years, and pulled data from financial platforms Ethan hadn't even heard of. Ethan expected a few discrepancies, maybe a missing receipt or two, but what Alicia brought back was far beyond anything he imagined. She called him into her office on a rainy Thursday afternoon. When he arrived, she had a stack of printed reports on her desk, highlighted in multiple colors. Without any build-up, she slid the first packet toward him and said, "Your wife isn't just careless, she's been hiding assets." Ethan's stomach tightened. He flipped open the first page and immediately noticed a payment account registered under Madison's maiden name, something she had never mentioned. Transaction after transaction showed thousands of dollars funneled into it every month, none of which appeared in their shared tax filings. Alicia pointed to another section where the transfers began looping through different banks, splitting into smaller amounts and resurfacing in yet another private account. It looked deliberate, calculated, and clearly designed to go unnoticed. Then came the second packet. This one detailed a stash of $67,000 sitting, untouched, in an account labeled as a business reserve. Ethan remembered Madison mentioning years ago that she wanted to start a side business, but never followed through. Apparently, she had used that excuse as a cover to store money out of sight. Alicia tapped her pen against the page and said, "This kind of concealment isn't accidental. She's been planning something for a long time." But the most shocking part wasn't the hidden accounts or the secret savings. It was the crypto wallet. Alicia uncovered a digital wallet containing $31,000 in various coins, created 2 years earlier under Madison's old email address. Madison had never shown any interest in crypto. In fact, she mocked Ethan for his investments, calling them nerdy toys and insisting they were barely worth anything. Yet here she was, holding her own portfolio while pretending crypto didn't matter. Ethan stared at the screen in disbelief, realizing she had likely hoped he would never discover it. Alicia wasn't finished. She pulled up a file of unreported commissions from Madison's real estate work. Multiple transactions marked as consulting fees were clearly property deals that should have been taxed. The total unreported income was staggering, and Alicia calmly explained that hiding earnings of that scale could trigger federal scrutiny. Ethan felt chills run down his spine, knowing Madison had been so reckless while accusing him of financial abuse. The final blow came when Alicia showed him a timeline she constructed. It traced Madison's spending spikes, private transfers, and calculated withdrawals leading up to the divorce filing. It wasn't random. It wasn't emotional. It was strategic. Madison had been quietly positioning herself to take as much as possible while shielding her own assets from the division. Ethan sat back, overwhelmed but strangely calm. For the first time since receiving the divorce papers, he understood the truth. Madison wasn't just trying to take his assets. She was trying to rewrite the financial narrative entirely, painting herself as the victim while hiding enough money to walk away unscathed. Alicia closed the folder and said, "This is only the beginning. Once we present this, her entire case falls apart." Ethan nodded, realizing the war he thought he was preparing for had already been happening behind his back for years. And now, the evidence was finally on his side. Madison's reaction to the first hints of exposure was immediate and volatile. The moment her attorney informed her that Ethan had hired a forensic accountant, she spiraled. Instead of stepping back or attempting to clarify her finances, she doubled down with a kind of frantic aggression that made everything worse. She filed an emergency motion demanding that the court freeze Ethan's assets, claiming he was attempting to flee with marital funds. The judge denied it within hours due to lack of evidence, but the attempt alone revealed how desperate she had become. A few days later, Ethan returned home to find his entire gaming setup missing. His dual-monitor rig, his tower, his headphones, even the mouse, gone. The front door showed no signs of forced entry, which meant only one thing. Madison had used her old key and taken everything she thought might be valuable or contain digital assets. Ethan filed a police report, expecting the process to drag on, but the officers contacted Madison the same evening. She tried to justify it by saying she co-owned the equipment, but the receipts were all in Ethan's name. Within 48 hours, the police escorted her back to return the stolen items, and Ethan watched her avoid eye contact the entire time. The chaos didn't stop there. Every time Madison tried to strike, the blow somehow weakened her position. Alicia continued digging and compiled her findings into a 73-page report. It documented every concealed account, every hidden deposit, and every unreported commission. Near the end of the report was a section that made Ethan's heart sink, even though he wasn't the one in trouble. $94,000 in income that Madison had never declared on her taxes. Alicia didn't just outline it. She provided tables, timelines, and extracted transaction IDs, showing exactly how Madison had been funneling money to avoid the IRS. When Madison's attorney received that report, he lasted less than 2 days before withdrawing from the case entirely. He sent her a formal notice stating that the professional risk was too high and that her lack of transparency had compromised his ability to represent her. Madison responded with fury, blasting him in texts and emails, but he didn't budge. Ethan heard about it only because Alicia forwarded him the attorney's withdrawal letter, noting that this kind of collapse from the opposing side usually meant the case had shifted dramatically. Instead of reevaluating her actions, Madison spun further out of control. She started posting cryptic, angry messages online about betrayal, mail manipulation, and corrupt legal systems. People who once supported her began questioning her motives as inconsistencies leaked between her posts. Ethan didn't respond to any of it. He stayed quiet, collected, and let Alicia handle everything. Behind the scenes, Madison's panic manifested in reckless financial behavior. She made rushed transfers between her remaining accounts, tried withdrawing large sums that triggered automatic flags, and even attempted to set up new payment apps under fake business names. Alicia tracked all of it, documenting each move like another nail sealing a coffin. By the end of the month, Madison wasn't just losing control of the narrative. She was losing control of herself. Her strategies had backfired so forcefully that every attempt to hurt Ethan only exposed more evidence against her. And as Alicia summarized the latest findings in a calm, almost clinical tone, Ethan realized that Madison was no longer fighting for advantage. She was fighting out of fear. And fear was unraveling everything she had tried to build in secret. Madison's unraveling reached a new level the night she decided to go live while drunk. She sat in her cluttered living room, wine bottle visible in the frame, ranting to hundreds of viewers about how everyone was out to get her. In her rambling frustration, she claimed her former attorney had helped hide money before, and that she knew all the tricks because he taught them to her. She didn't realize she was confessing to crimes on a public broadcast. Clips spread quickly, and within hours, people began tagging legal professionals who confirmed that her statements were not just reckless, they were evidence. The IRS investigation began quietly, but its impact hit Madison like a tidal wave. Agents contacted her within 2 weeks of receiving the court documents, requesting 7 years' worth of tax records, bank statements, commission sheets, and digital payment histories. Madison initially tried to brush them off, insisting there must be a misunderstanding, but the IRS doesn't respond to charm or excuses. They sent a second notice, then a third, each one more urgent than the last. Her anxiety grew so intense that she stopped sleeping, packing her apartment at night as she tried to piece together what she had hidden and what could still be uncovered. Madison's desperation reached a final breaking point when she realized the investigation was closing in on her. Her accounts were frozen, her career was gone, and the support she once cultivated online had evaporated. In a last attempt to salvage the divorce outcome, she filed a new claim accusing Ethan of emotional abuse. She described him as controlling, manipulative, and psychologically violent, insisting the court should consider her a victim deserving of compensation. But the accusation lacked substance from the moment it was submitted. Ethan's attorney responded by providing a detailed archive of messages, voice recordings, and home camera footage that painted a very different picture. In the videos, it was Madison who shouted insults, slammed doors, and initiated arguments. In the texts, she threatened to ruin him financially, months before filing for divorce. The evidence showed a consistent pattern of her aggression, not his. When the judge reviewed the materials, he frowned deeply, recognizing the tactic as retaliatory rather than genuine. Madison was called to testify again, and her attorney tried to guide her through the narrative. But every time she attempted to frame Ethan as abusive, her own communication contradicted her claims. Under questioning, she grew flustered, her voice trembling as she stumbled through explanations that made less sense with each sentence. The judge eventually interrupted her and stated clearly that making false accusations in court was a serious offense. He warned that weaponizing abuse claims to manipulate divorce proceedings was not only unethical but potentially punishable. Madison looked like she had been struck, her composure unraveling in front of everyone. With the abuse claim dismissed, the court moved straight to asset division. Alicia's forensic report had already dismantled Madison's credibility. Her hidden accounts, concealed commissions, undeclared crypto, and tax issues proved she had engaged in financial misconduct throughout the marriage. Ethan, on the other hand, had complied fully, provided accurate statements, and shown no history of deception. The judge took all of this into account when issuing his final ruling. The marital home remained with Ethan, as it had been purchased with his premarital funds. Most shared assets were divided according to documented contributions. When it came to the crypto portfolio, the judge included Madison's hidden $31,000 wallet in the total amount before determining each spouse's share. This meant her portion was significantly smaller than she expected. And because of the ongoing IRS investigation, nearly everything allocated to her was earmarked for penalties and back taxes. Madison sat silently as the judge finalized the decree. Her attorney avoided eye contact, knowing the outcome was the result of her own actions. Ethan, meanwhile, remained calm, listening carefully as the court concluded that her patterns of concealment, false accusations, and financial deceit had directly influenced the division. The judge ended by stating that integrity and transparency were essential in legal proceedings, qualities Madison had repeatedly failed to demonstrate. When the session adjourned, Madison walked out of the courtroom looking hollow. She had lost the marriage, lost her career, and lost almost all the assets she once tried to claim as hers alone. The IRS penalties loomed over her future, and the crypto she hid so carefully was no longer accessible. She had entered the divorce expecting to take everything. Now she was leaving with nothing but debt, legal consequences, and the weight of her own decisions. Ethan stepped out of the courthouse into the bright afternoon sunlight, finally free of the storm she had created. He breathed deeply, feeling a sense of closure he hadn't expected. The battle was over, and for the first time in months, the path ahead looked clear. Madison's life collapsed faster than she could comprehend. The IRS placed her under formal supervision, restricting her travel and monitoring every financial move she made. Her real estate license was revoked, and with no income and frozen accounts, she had no choice but to move back in with her parents. The online presence she once used to portray a perfect life disappeared overnight as she deleted posts and avoided public scrutiny. Meanwhile, Ethan rebuilt his life quietly and steadily. He sold unnecessary belongings, reorganized his finances, and focused on stability rather than revenge. His crypto portfolio continued to grow, and for the first time in years, he felt fully in control of his future. In time, he began seeing someone new, Paige, kind, grounded, and nothing like the chaos he had left behind. Looking back, Ethan realized he never needed to fight dirty or strike back. The only things that protected him were documentation, honesty, and patience. The truth had dismantled every lie Madison tried to weaponize. As he started his new chapter, he understood one simple lesson: doing the right thing is the most powerful retaliation of all.